What is up, guys, and welcome back to another I Popcorn for That video. So we're doing something a little different this time. No movie review or anything. We just we're gonna hop on here and kind of have a free form discussion about the question on a lot of people's minds right now that pay attention to Hollywood and the movies and everything, which is why are all these big movies that everybody's counting on to make money not making any money? Why are people not going out to the theaters? So. Um, I think there's a bunch of elements there, and I don't know how much how much you keep your eye on that kind of thing. But but yeah, most of the movies this summer, that we expect to be like these are like existing franchises, and they're kind of the studios are counting on these to make money. These summer blockbusters are coming out and making no money. So I don't know to what extent you knew that was going on. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, I've been seeing the headlines. Like, obviously, some movies I kind of thought wouldn't, like The Flash, just because of the controversy around the actor. And,
and
uh,
that's the question. I mean, which part of it is the biggest factor
well, there's also,
with
like,
some of these?
a lot of the DC movies haven't been good. So, that's also part of it, I'm sure, is nobody expects it to be good. So they don't go see it. But, I mean, there's also, just finding out that Indiana Jones isn't doing great either. Which you really
Yeah,
thought nostalgia would play a big part in that to where people would want to go see it and everything. And like we're not the biggest fans. It's just we went and saw it because it's the big blockbuster out and everything. But I
yeah. I
mean,
mean, with Indiana Jones, even you could say like, well, people didn't want one that much later after the franchise, but people went out. I don't know if you remember, but I saw Indiana Jones 4 in theaters, and people came out for that. I mean, it might have been the lowest box office grosser of all,
yeah,
out of the other Indiana Jones movies, but it still made tons of money compared to what this current Indiana Jones. I think it's like opening weekend was like $60 million, and it's the 13th most expensive movie ever made by man.
oh wow, I didn't know that.
It cost 329 million some odd dollars to just the production budget, and then most movies you just about double that, if not more, in marketing, and they marketed the heck out of this Indiana
Hmm.
Jones movie. So I'd say I'd say to break even, they probably had to make over $600 million. Uh, it's not gonna make that kind of money. There's no way with a
Yeah,
start like that.
and for me, it's kind of hard to judge how well a movie is doing, like with how many people are in the theaters, because a lot of the time when I see movies, I'll see them like on a Sunday morning while people are in church and stuff, and just kind of get away
Yeah,
from the crowd. Because I think when I saw The Flash, there were like maybe 8 people in there, and that was opening weekend. And the same with Indiana Jones, like a little bit, like a few or more, like maybe 15 to 20, but it's at a theater that seats like at least 100 or more. But it
yeah. I
could
mean,
just be the time of day for what I'm seeing.
right, but I mean, I will say like Little Mermaid was packed,
Yeah, it was for me too.
uh, and it's one of the kind of exceptions. Like, it's not one of the big ones that completely flopped. It's like doing okay. The big ones in question really are, um, the Flash, the new Indiana Jones, and Elemental. So like, you know, Elemental just was the second lowest opening weekend of a Pixar movie of all time.
Yeah, and I saw
Uh,
something like its budget was twice that of Enter, the new Spider-Man movie.
yeah, something like that. So Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse was, um, I think like a little over 100 million. I don't see how that's possible. By the way,
It's a lot
if
of
I
artists drawn, man.
yeah, but if Elemental can, I mean, we didn't see Elemental, but if Elemental can come out and cost $200 million, how do you do something so visually amazing as Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse and it costs half of that? I don't know.
Maybe it's just like the
Maybe,
CGI or something. There's less of it used in Spider-Man somehow because some of the backgrounds and everything are, but I don't know.
I guess, I don't know. Uh, but uh, but that was a good use of budget. Whatever they did there was the right answer, because that's one movie that's actually making, a killing right now. And like, the argument. So a lot of people are saying like, well, people are broke right now, and inflation, and did COVID kill theaters? Are people like just gotten used to watching things at home? Um,
I mean, I'll tell you,
there's
if
the
I could watch these movies at home, I would, because I don't like I'm okay going to theaters, but there's so many times where you get those other people who like are on their phones or talking next to you through the whole movie, and it seems to happen to me pretty frequently.
Were you somebody that went to the movies a lot before COVID?
Uh, Not too often, really. I mean, if there was something out I wanted to see.
So I think that's the question: is like, did people who normally went to theaters slow down or stop going to theaters in the wake of COVID? Even though we're, you know, for all intents and purposes, on the other side of it now, like how many people how many people just went with, because you couldn't go to the theater anymore, how many people just got comfortable with that and changed their style? Because if you were somebody that didn't go before, it's like, well, you weren't part of the box office numbers anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just my argument for that is, for one thing, we had Top Gun Maverick come out.
Which I still haven't seen,
uh,
and I heard it was good, but I don't I didn't really care for the original one when I saw it. I mean, I haven't watched it in years, but
well, and regardless, you can see that, like, rebooting an like a legacy franchise isn't a guaranteed cash. It's not guaranteed to make money, so they couldn't really count on that. I mean, Top Gun obviously drew its audience because it's good, and people came out, and then they told their friends about it, and their friends went out, and people went and saw it more than once, and it became, like, one of the highest grossing movies of all time. Avatar: The Way of Water, one of the highest grossing movies of all time. Um, so you can't really. I don't think you can fully blame COVID. Maybe people are being very selective, and I think this is part of it. I think people
hmm
are being more selective about what they'll go see in theaters because we've grown accustomed to a different time window of how long a movie's in theaters before you can see it in streaming.
hmm
And a lot of things we know, not only that it's going straight to streaming as soon as it leaves theaters, pretty much, but also we know right where it's going to. Like, if you already have HBO Max, then every Warner Brother movie is going to go straight to that. And if you already have Disney Plus, every Disney property is going to go straight to that. And you don't have to wait that long. So unless you really want to see something on a big screen, or you're just really a big fan of the movie, the communal experience of going to a movie and experiencing it with other people. Like, I think some things, some comedies, or some like big action movies maybe, or like the Marvel movies, I think all those kind of benefit from the theater experience. If you went and saw Avengers Endgame, for example, either of those last two, Infinity War and Endgame,
Yeah.
in theaters, it's like we all went through something together, and like people are, when everybody in the room's sad, and then everybody in the room's excited, and then everybody in the room's feeling, we're all just feeling all these things together. So there's merit to that, with a lot of movies and comedies. Everybody's laughing together and stuff.
Yeah, I
um,
do agree. I mean, some movies are definitely better to see in theaters. Probably, it's like Avatar, for example. Like, the movies that are
right.
shot on the IMAX cameras and stuff. Like Oppenheimer, which we'll be seeing, is
We're gonna see, yeah.
yeah, like without the Dolby Digital and all that, like it's
But
probably
like,
not as impactful.
as much as I loved it, and as much as and this is, I hate this example because it's a movie I like, but as much as I loved it, and I'm glad that I got the chance to support it, something like Blackberry, like one of my favorite movies of the year so far,
Yeah,
but something like Blackberry, I didn't need to see that in theaters. It's
nah.
cool that I got to, and I'm glad that some money went to them or whatever, but that's like a sit at home movie. It's a really good, nothing against the movie at all, but it's like, you don't. Why would you choose to go see? And no, so nobody did, and that was one nobody was expecting any money out of anyway. But it's like these ones where um, with the Flash, I get that it's like the perfect storm with the Flash, and there's so many things working against it. How many people didn't go because of Ezra Miller? A lot. I mean, in my own life, I know people that won't go,
Yeah,
uh, because of Ezra Miller, and the story was so public and everything. So that might be its own unique case, and it's also like you're about to release a movie at the end of a franchise that's death is already announced. You know what I mean? Like, we know we're polishing brass on a Titanic.
yeah. I mean,
Uh,
that's not part of the James Gunn universe. He's scrapping pretty much everybody.
I think there was, I can't remember who it was that said it, but I think I've heard, like, people in the industry have said that nobody else should ever play the Flash, and maybe even that nobody else ever will play the Flash, which is not, you can't make those kind of claims anyway. But like, they're insinuating that they're gonna, if there's more Flash to be had, it's gonna be Ezra Miller. I don't even know if there's any slated Flash anything coming.
I
And I
mean, they
think
could
anything that was,
always I mean, they'll probably just recast if they do, but they could always use the guy. I think his name's Grant Gustin. Is that his name from the
from
TV
from
show?
the from the TV show. Yeah,
Yeah.
I heard he was pissed that he didn't get cast like he didn't make any appearance in the movie. By the way,
Yeah. I was kind of expecting to like maybe see him, but it makes sense not to.
but there's so with that one, there's so much about it that's I mean, if you at this point, if you had anything Flash related on the books that's coming up, I think it just got canceled after
Yeah.
this because that's like the worst. $55 million on like a $250 million budget. Um, and it's probably I don't even know if it's I don't know what it's up to now, but I think the global box office for that is just now like breaking even for their production budget.
Oh
So we
wow.
haven't even touched the. It's bad news. A lot of money is lost there.
And
Um,
it's I guess
and then
it
I think oh, what were you gonna say?
like all the like reboots and stuff that are coming out. Like you sent me that list yesterday, and it's like
Yeah, let me look
Spike.
at it.
Yeah, I can't remember what all was on it, but like reboot of Harry Potter, which I don't think it needs a reboot, but I mean, if they're gonna do a television show and include more detail, I'll probably
I'm more
watch
on
it.
board. I'm more on board. I mean, I'm not sure I love it, but I'm more on board with taking legacy movies and adapting them into TV show form because at
Mm-hmm.
least you're it's just baked into the idea that it's such a different format that you can do more. So if it's based on like Harry Potter's based on a book, they're gonna do one season of the show for every book, and so you can really delve in there. If they do it well, they could really be good because they're going to really delve in there and get some of like the minutia of the plot that you can't translate into a movie.
Yeah.
But let me see this list. So the TV thing is one thing, but this list, and this is sort of coming from. It says discussing films is the tweet, the original tweet. So I don't know how. I'm not familiar with that. Um, but it just says major franchises with reboots in the works. So DC, so the new James Gunn DC, and they still. By the way, we still have Aquaman to go, and uh, isn't there another one? Oh, Blue Beetle.
Yeah.
Who's gonna? Nobody's gonna.
Are there
We're gonna watch Blue
already?
Beetle. Nobody's gonna watch Blue Beetle.
We're
We
gonna
might be
watch
the
it.
only ones. I figure it's like the only thing coming out that week.
Okay. Uh, has there already been more than one Aquaman? I don't think I even watched the first one. Or I think I started watching it and was like, nah.
No, in a certain special kind of way that I can't compare it to any other movie. I really like Aquaman, but it is so stupid,
Okay.
and it is absolutely turn your brain off. And there are times where I can't turn my brain off enough for this, but I think it makes up for itself with like really amazing visuals and action scenes, and the colors are so vibrant. I mean, it puts like the Avatar world to shame sometimes. Nah, ish.
Yeah.
But like all the like photo bioluminescence and stuff, like everything glows, and they just do some really really cool stuff with that. But then you cut over and it's like there's literally an octopus playing the drums, and you either love that or you don't. I mean, it's James Wan.
Yeah.
So it's like a unique. I mean, I don't imagine James Wan directing an Aquaman movie. It's pretty
Yeah. I don't either.
pretty different. But like the Jason Momoa role is super, to me, super dumb. Like there's like a scene where he's eating a rose for no reason. I don't know
Hmm.
what that had to do with anything. But yeah, and the new one's got Amber Heard, so we're like uphill battle to get people to see it anyway because nobody likes her anymore,
Yeah.
and she's still in it for some reason. So DC, X Files. What?
I
They're gonna
mean,
reboot X Files?
yeah, but I mean, is they could just like it's like a continuation. I'm assuming they're not using David Duchovny and Gillian Anderson, or are they?
Either way, I have sort of the same thing, which is that let's just come up with something. Because here's the thing: if you keep just all we do is reboot old things that people already love, and we bank on nostalgia and bank on nostalgia, at some point the well runs dry. There's no more nostalgia to mine from
Yeah.
because we're not putting out new things into the world for people to one day be nostalgic about. It's like,
And
what are people's
there's
kids gonna be nostalgic for? Ghostbusters Afterlife?
right. And there's so much content out there to draw from, like books, for example. Like
So many books.
there's so many books that I've read that I was like, I would love to see this in a movie.
Yeah, what was you were saying? Like some of Stephen King's stuff that
Yeah, I'm reading
he
some
wrote under a pseudonym.
yeah, some early books he wrote under the name of Richard Bachman, and there's one that I read that I don't know how good of a movie it would make, but like the premise is cool, and then somebody has the rights for it because I looked it up, and they might actually go into production on it. But it was called The Long Walk, and the whole premise is it's like kind of a game show thing where 100 kids, like teenagers, start in Canada, and then they just have to walk, and the winner gets like a prize and stuff. And if they get like 3 warnings for 30 seconds, if they go below like 4 miles per hour or whatever. But if they get all their warnings, they get shot. Game over. And then they just keep
I
going
think I
day
remember
and
seeing that
night.
book. Is that recent? Is that a recent release?
No, this is like one of the because the Bachman books he wrote like when he was in college, I believe. Like one of them is he
Oh,
wrote before he even wrote Carrie, and he released it later.
mm. uh, so X Files is one. I mean, not a movie, but uh,
And they did that
Hellboy
with
is on here.
Twilight Zone too, which I don't know that if it's still going, if it's canceled, or if it was any good.
It got canceled, and I didn't hear much good about it.
Mm.
I watched one episode of it. And I don't remember much about it. There was like a comedian. I think it was like maybe Kumail Nanjiani or something
Okay.
as like playing a comedian. I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't remember anything about it really. Hellboy is on this list, and
I don't think
if
they
they're
should
really
have.
considering, and I don't know what it means. Maybe we should have looked into some of these, but I don't know
Yeah.
if they mean like bringing back Ron Perlman and Guillermo del Toro and doing another Hellboy, or if they mean they certainly don't mean another David Harbour Hellboy, because I've heard in interviews him saying like that's his biggest regret is playing Hellboy,
Mhm.
because like a bunch of people warned him not to do it. But I just that franchise never made any money in the first place. I like the Hellboy movie, like the first two Hellboy movies, but they didn't make any money. And if you're just gonna bank on nostalgia, you ruin that by making another one with David Harbour that nobody likes. So,
Yeah.
and then Twilight, it says I have no idea what they're gonna do there. If they're making a TV show or rebooting Twilight with new people, or
Those
I
movies
certainly
were so bad.
so bad. And I cannot see any amount of money dragging Robert Pattinson back into that role. He was hating that role while he was doing it,
Yeah.
and he's done so much work to try to distance himself from that now. Like to get to go back into that role, man, big, huge mistake. I don't think he'll do.
I mean,
Spy Kids.
I, I remember kind of liking them as a kid, but I don't see any point in rebooting it. I wouldn't watch a new one for nostalgia reasons. I don't care about it. I guess maybe you make it appeal to kids these days. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't have any positive memories about like the first two of those, which is all I ever watched, and I certainly never watched Shark Boy and Lava Girl. And
No.
I think in general, I mean, hot take incoming here, but I think in general, I'm just not a huge Robert Rodriguez fan ever. And
Yeah.
then there's like maybe one exception, which I don't want to revisit it and see that I don't like it anymore. But I liked Sin City a lot at the time, and I
Oh
watched
yeah,
it a
I did
handful of
like that.
times at the time. But beyond that, man, I don't even like From Dusk Till Dawn. Really, I think it's overly like campy and goofy, and not
Mhm.
quite my not quite my thing. And I can't stand Quentin Tarantino as much as I love Quentin Tarantino as an actor. I can't stand him as a uh, I said that backwards. I think as much as I love Tarantino as a director, I can't stand him as an actor. I think
Yeah.
he's super cringy and weird.
I mean, he was all right in Pulp Fiction, but it's such a small part.
Yeah, I can handle that, but Wizard of Oz is on here.
Could not care less about that, man. Like I don't even like the original Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, I really don't either. I respect it for what it is, and like I'm sure it's impressive for its time. Like you forget how old
Yeah.
that movie is, but do I actually enjoy watching it? Unfortunately I don't. I mean, I even when I was a little kid, I was kind of like,
Mhm.
eh. Uh, you know. So here's the funny thing. I didn't even think about this until now that we're recording it, but I grew up. My mom would read me the original Wizard of Oz books, and we had like original ones from like the 1800s,
Oh.
and the illustrations are really cool, and there's a lot more stories beyond like the whole Dorothy story and everything is one story in the Wizard of Oz books. There's a ton of other stuff and a ton of other characters they don't mention, the Patchwork Girl and the whatever. I think it could potentially be cool to do like a kids or young adult like fantasy series that that goes into all the different books and all the different characters. So have like a season of maybe an episode or a season or whatever of the Patchwork Girl book and the there's like this mechanic. I can't remember his name right now, unfortunately, but there's like this mechanical guy that looks like a very like steampunk robot guy that's like all spheres and looks like he's got like clockwork and stuff in him. So
Huh.
there's a lot to mine from that, but I guarantee they won't do it the cool way. They're just gonna roll out a bunch of celebrities that we already know and have them rehash the exact story of the original Wizard of Oz and have some hopefully big name director to attach to it and then see if we all go. And I just just don't see a lot of reason to do that, you know.
Yeah.
Uh Percy Jackson I can't comment on because I didn't see that. It looked like Harry Potter knockoff and nobody watched it or at least not many people liked it and
I think there's like a following for it, but I'm one of those people like I think I watched the first one as a kid and never saw any of the other
like the
ones.
story if I'm is this not the one where the story sounds like exactly like Harry Potter? Like it might have come first or whatever, I don't know, but it sounds
I'm
like
not
exactly.
sure. I know it's like kids that are offspring of like Greek gods and stuff, and they go to a summer camp and something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, it sounds like it could be very Harry Pottery. Doesn't
Yeah.
mean it's bad. I don't know about that one. Um, and then Chronicles of Narnia, which I like the first Chronicles of Narnia movie. I haven't ever seen or really heard much about any of the other ones. I can't even remember how many there are after the first one, but I do like the first one a lot. It's like Lord of the Rings for kids with a Jesus lion.
Yeah, I
But
don't have to think I've seen them.
oh, the first one's good. Uh,
I might have seen like parts on if it was on TV one time. I feel like because I feel, or maybe I've just seen pictures of James McAvoy as the satyr or whatever.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I like it. I've watched it recently and actually liked it more than I remembered uh, liking it back in the day. So maybe I should watch some of them. But I just don't. The general thing is like I think, and I don't know to what role what role this plays in people not showing up at the movies, but I don't like I said like case in point, things like or even with an animated movie, The Rise of Gru,
Hmm.
or I think that's it, like the newest Minions Despicable Me movie, that made a ton of money. So animated movies can still do well. Like, because you could say like, well, nobody went to Elemental because it's too expensive to drag all your kids out and spend a hundred
Yeah.
dollars on a ticket to
Well,
go see Elemental, and so these kids movies are not going to be successful. But uh, Rise of Gru and Puss in Boots too, like made a ton. Puss in Boots just kept making money.
which
Uh,
I don't think I've seen any of the Puss in Boots movie. I've only ever seen him in Shrek, and but I know the Minions have such a huge following. Like
yeah, but this
I
is
don't get
this is
it,
like one of the
but
highest gross. This is like maybe the highest grosser of the franchise,
uh,
and it's post COVID. So I don't think you can put and and inflation is has been a thing. So so I don't think you can point to that. So I think some degree of it has to be people that are feeling this general malaise of like lather, rinse, repeat. Another studio is going to pick up another property that they haven't made a movie about in a while, and we're going to roll out some of the old cast, and we're going to bring in the new cast, and we're going to try to pass the torch from the old cast to the new cast. Like
hmm.
I think that they probably were trying. Uh, Yeah, I was gonna say like soft spoiler, but I don't think really. But I think they were trying to do that with Indiana Jones, where it's like, ooh, is Phoebe Waller-Bridge gonna? Are we gonna get a she Indiana Jones?
That's
Except
kind of what I was thinking.
nobody's. That's never gonna happen at
I mean,
all.
are they already talking about rebooting that franchise or
Indiana Jones.
yeah?
God, I sure hope not. I don't even want to look it up.
I'm
Please
sure
don't.
eventually they will, but who knows?
It's like nothing safe. Like, and I thought I heard at one point. Don't quote me on this, but I thought I heard at one point that somebody was like, "Oh, there might be a Back to the Future sequel in it, or a Back to the Future reboot in the works," and I was like, I thought like who's the directed role? Is that Roland Emmerich?
Uh, I'm not sure.
I thought that I heard like he said that as long as he's alive, he won't be able to make another Back
Robert
to the Future.
Zemeckis.
Zemeckis. So I think he said like as long as he lives, there won't be another reboot or sequel to Back to the Future. So I don't see. if maybe I just am imagining that,
Yeah, but I mean,
but the
unless he
point is
owns
like
the rights to it, he couldn't really stop him, I'm sure.
the point is that like I said, the reason people love these movies so much, and the reason there's something to be nostalgic about, and the reason that they're rolling out these legacy characters and stuff is because the original movies were really good and they were something different and they were something unique and it stood out for its time. You gotta, we got, and and I don't want to put it on like us as the our audience and the general viewing audience and everything of movies. It's not really on us, but you know some people want to say like you got to go out and support these independent movies, and there is something to be said about that. Like
Hmm.
if if you want to see them, if you want to see Hollywood shift to making unique stories that stand on their own and that we'll be nostalgic about in the future, um, I guess we do have to vote with our dollar and go see those movies instead of. And I almost thought about making this channel with that idea in mind. Like, let's go see the movies that look really good and are made, small budgets and directors that like. I don't want to say this as I was gonna say like still really care about the craft and the art form of it and have something to prove and whatever, but like there's plenty of big name, huge, super famous Hollywood directors that still have the capability of making really, really good stories that are unique and everything.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, just maybe maybe everybody should kind of have this mindset a little bit of like, what do you want to see out of Hollywood? Because if we keep and maybe this is it. Maybe we've reached the point where people have finally said, okay, that is it. We see the cash grabbiness of it all. We see that it's very like it's about marketability and product placement and stuff. And so maybe there is like I don't know when you talk about friend like when you talk with friends of yours about it, like do you feel like most people have this same sentiment of like we don't need to go rebooting everything? I mean, most
Yeah,
people I
for the
talk
most
to
part.
have this kind of idea.
Yeah, I mean, there's
Uh,
so many other things to draw from, or just original stories that writers are out there writing, which of course is a writer strike right now. So maybe that is
and that,
part of the reason they're like, oh, reboots, because we can just use
yeah,
the same source material.
that's why for me, like I would rather. So at the beginning of this year, I went and saw um, Knock at the Cabin. I always want to call it Cabin in the Woods.
Yeah,
Knock at the Cabin, and it's not a 10 out of 10. It's not a 9 out of 10. It's an interesting movie that has flaws, and it is what it is. But and when you just M Night Shyamalan in general, when you go see an M Night Shyamalan movie, you're taking a gamble. I think most people would agree. Like you can't be sure anymore. Like it used to be like guaranteed this is going to be great. This guy's the new Steven Spielberg or the new
hmm,
up and coming guy. But with over time, he kind of lost that reputation, and it's become a thing now of like we'll see what we're going to get. But the thing with him that keeps me coming back to that guy is he is consistently interesting. He's consistently doing something different. He tends to choose one-off, self-contained stories that stand on their own, and they've got a uniqueness enough about them that like even if you don't like them, there's always so much to say about them, and there's always something like you. If you don't like an M Night Shyamalan movie, you don't like it in a way that you could probably talk about for 20 minutes.
oh, I bet I could talk about Avatar: The Last Airbender for 20 minutes and how bad he butchered that.
Or
But
The Lady in the Water, or
that movie was
there's
pretty
a
bad.
there's some stinkers out there, man. The
Yeah,
Happening for me is like uh, just really like a masterpiece of bad filmmaking. Like
yeah,
it's like a class on how to not make a movie. Um, but yeah, I would rather vote with my dollar. And like we were saying, I'd rather pay for a ticket to an M Night Shyamalan movie, even if it's not good, than uh, you know then keep shelling out like they're gonna do before the end of the year. There's gonna be I've heard like nothing but good about Ghostbusters Afterlife, and I can't remember if you've seen it or not. But they're gonna do another one of those before the year's even out.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. I think I watched that on a plane and it was okay.
and these big movies and some of these are gonna be great. Like we might end up seeing the new Mission Impossible movie. Uh, it's the seventh movie in a series, or like the 10th Fast and Furious movie comes out. Like at some point you got to let things like you got to say things that run their course. I think,
People keep
but
seeing them though. I mean, that's the thing. They said vote with your dollar. People are paying to see them.
and if we go see Mission Impossible, it could be completely great, and I could be wanting nothing more than to see, and this is a part one of two, so
Yeah.
like there's literally another one coming very
I
shortly.
mean, I did watch the most recent one. I think it was this new one's called Dead Reckoning.
Yeah, yeah, Day Reckoning Part One,
Yeah.
yeah.
I can't go. I think Ghost Protocol was the name of it. The one with Henry Cavill, and I liked that one.
Now I'm questioning the title of the new one, but yeah,
I think it's
it's
Dead Reckoning,
yeah, yeah.
but
I don't know, because it's a complicated thing. It's not like
well, in a lot of the.
if you love a franchise like the John Wick franchise,
Mhm.
like, and we're not caught up on the newest one either, but like it seems like the newest one is like kind of the one that's people are either saying it's the best one of the franchise or the second best. So people are loving it. If anything, it's getting better. And if you love a franchise like that, you do want them to keep making more of them until they stop. But it just seems like most things have an expiration date, like a shelf life,
Mhm.
and eventually, unless something drastic happens, like if you do a hard reboot of a series, though, I always question like, couldn't you have made like couldn't you have just made that movie and not had it be like take like the 2018 Halloween movie?
Yeah.
I like that pretty good. Like I'm not it's not I don't remember a ton about it and it's not like my favorite movie or anything. But I like that pretty good. But I think it honestly would have benefited from just not trying to tie itself at all to the Halloween franchise and just being a new slasher movie. It's a little different than Halloween and people are going to draw comparisons or whatever, but if you hadn't put the guy if you don't put the guy in the mask, and this analogy works for other movies too, but I think there's a ton of movies written, like somebody probably wrote a movie about like fighter jets and stuff, and then somebody was like, I can't market that. Can you? Is there any way you can make it? Can we get Tom Cruise and make it a new Top Gun movie? And they were like, yeah, if we tweak enough, we can probably make it a Top Gun movie. And then it turns out great because somebody, and I don't know, I have no idea if that's what happened.
Yeah.
But maybe it turned out great because somebody wrote a movie without having to tie themselves down to something, and then some studio came in and said like, yeah, we gotta, you know how we do, we gotta tie this to some existing property because we can't just bank on anything anymore. And it felt like in the 90s and early 2000s and stuff, like studios took a lot of gambles, and I don't know what's changed exactly. Like, do we just go to those less? Because stuff this
Well,
year, like
it's harder to
this
see
year,
some things too. Like we were talking about, like Past
yeah,
Lives. We wanted to go see that, and it wasn't playing anywhere when it came. I think it's playing now near me, but
it's playing now near me, but it took so long to. I mean,
yeah.
even when we look at the movie release calendar, it'll say it like not in bold, and then it'll the next time it shows up, it'll be in bold and say like wide release, like because some movies will do small release and then expand their release to most more theaters. And even the date of the second, like I was checking to see if I could see Past Lives when it expanded to more theaters, and I couldn't see it still. So they just picked some random. You just don't know what you're going to be able to even see. This movie, we were going to watch Biosphere. We can't figure out where to watch that. I don't even know
Well,
if
it
it's
is.
coming.
It's on Amazon.
Is it even coming to theaters?
I don't know. Like I figured it was. I saw a trailer for it in theaters, and I feel like that's
Yeah.
probably one you don't need to see in theaters, but I would have if it was one near me. And even like the art house theater that is by me, like close to me that I used to go to see like obscure releases and stuff. I
hmm
looked at their showings, and it's nothing but just the same movies that are at the theater at the AMC next to me. It's like that's
Now mine is pretty
surprising.
good about showing like something like I don't know if you remember the one Monica,
Yeah,
um,
we
that
talked
came out
about it.
earlier this year. Like they were playing that, so they play some pretty small stuff, and they have a lot of like Indian, um,
Yeah, they play a
kind of
lot
a
of
big
those at the AMC near me too.
kind of a big wave of like Indian cinema right now. Like not
Yeah,
just Bollywood, but I can't remember the other one. Not Bollywood, but whatever RRR was. I'm sorry, I can't
yeah.
remember what that is. But like if you look at movies this year that did have wide releases that are more on the unusual side or more on the not necessarily art house, but they can be. But um, it's different with those kind of movies. I don't know how much money to expect. The one that sticks out in my mind that's sort of an example of this, like I can't figure out exactly what happened here, was Beau is Afraid, because I felt like Beau is Afraid had enough going into it where it's like there's enough fans surely for Ari Aster's Hereditary and Midsummer that they'll come out to this. You know, like if you like those two movies, you'll come out and see whatever the guy watches next.
Well, I mean, even
And
though those are like we love those movies, and I'm sure there are a lot of people that do
they
as
did pretty
well.
well.
There's
They
still
did pretty well at the
probably
time.
like a big portion of people who saw the trailer for Beau is Afraid and thought like this looks too weird for me, because
I
those
guess that's it
are
because if you had gotten everybody who was a fan of Hereditary and Midsummer, like it didn't do as well as those did, you know. And I know the metrics different because the budget's lower and stuff, but this was
yeah.
they gave Ari Aster the most money they'd given him for this one, so it's it is going to be a flop ultimately unless it just gets a cult following afterwards. But I don't know how things once things leave the theater, like how do you even make money? Nobody buys DVDs, so you just have to like
Just
make a
rentals, I
couple
guess.
cents on streaming or yeah iTunes
Yeah.
purchases and rentals. But like, what was some of the other ones that came out this year? They're like more BlackBerry. Again, maybe that's just people saw the trailer and thought, I this can't be. Yeah, I can't see every movie, and this can't be one of the ones I see. I'll see that when it comes out some other way.
Yeah.
Um, and then what was some? There was something else that I heard made like I'm gonna draw a blank about it, but there was something else I heard made like 9 million, which Asteroid City made 9 million its opening weekend, and I
Oh,
don't like
really?
I don't really know how to process that number. Like, is that good or bad for Asteroid City? I don't, you know what I mean? I don't know how much. It's not Grand Budapest Hotel numbers, so I don't know, but yeah, what do So I guess this is sort of as much as this is an open discussion between us about this topic, we would like to hear from you guys about this one. Like, what are your thoughts on what's going on here? What are the, is there an overarching problem, or is it just each movie has its own thing that is causing a problem with it? Like for the Flash, the Ezra Miller problem, or Indiana Jones. Maybe people don't want to see 80-year-old Indiana Jones, or maybe people don't want to see an Indiana Jones movie that's not directed by Steven Spielberg and George Lucas isn't involved. So um, you got any other thoughts about any of this?
I don't know. Not really. I mean, it's just
It's a
strange.
complicated
Yeah.
it's a complicated thing. I think the summer is sort of where the studios count on getting back in the black, and we're going to put out these tentpole movies that the idea is like these are surely not going to fail, and
Yeah.
all the surely not to fail movies this year are failing. So and like I said, like we said a bunch, they all have their own Elemental. I think it suffered a lot from Disney. The way Disney's handling Pixar right now is like somebody really ought to step in and tell them to do this differently, right? I mean,
Mhm.
because Pixar went from somebody for one thing, you could count on the quality every time, and they've lost a little bit of that, like the counting on the quality every time. But I think their bigger problem is once. So like Onward, it couldn't be helped. Onward comes out around the same time as COVID happens,
Yeah.
and so Onward doesn't make any money, and
You
it'll
know,
always go down with a little asterisk. It's like, yeah, it flopped, but it couldn't be helped.
I think I rented that on Amazon on something. I don't remember, but I actually liked that one. I thought it was pretty good.
No, it's not bad. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not one of my favorites, but it's not bad. I rewatched it and liked it more actually the second time. So maybe playing a little D&D between the first time I watched it and the second time made me
Yeah.
like it a little more. It's a little bit of but the next one is Luca, I think, and Luca was made for theaters, and then they just released it straight to Disney Plus.
Yeah.
And then our Soul was next. Soul was certainly made for theaters. They released it straight to Disney Plus. They get you know basically no money for that. And I thought Soul was good.
I don't think I saw that one. I don't
You
remember.
remember it at all? Like, is that
I
is the name at least
not
ring any
really.
bells?
I watched Luca. I remember that. What was Soul?
It's like Jamie Foxx's character is like a music
Oh, oh.
teacher, and
Yeah, no,
and it's
I
like all
didn't.
takes place in the afterlife and stuff.
Yeah, I didn't see that one.
Uh, it's good.
Okay.
But that went straight to so it's got no hope of making any money. And then they did Turning Red. I think
Oh,
that's
yeah.
next. There's been so many,
Mhm.
but I think Turning Red was next. And Turning Red, there was no reason to like the theaters were back open. There was no reason to send that straight to streaming. And I think that's my favorite of the three or 4 or whatever post like COVID, recent Pixar movies. And then when they come back with that Lightyear movie. I don't hardly know anybody that watched that.
I didn't watch it.
Nobody watched it.
I heard it was bad. That's all I
And I heard
know.
it was like probably the most negatively reviewed Pixar movie maybe since like The Good Dinosaur or something. I don't know.
Hmm.
Like nobody seemed to really love that. And now we've got Elemental. And I think Elemental's thing too is that might be a really great little story and I might end up loving it and I've heard people say they cried and whatever. But the problem is I don't know if it's the marketing alone or whatever, but the problem is like when you watch those trailers, to me it's pretty generic looking, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it looks like they're just blobs. It's a blob of fire and a blob of water, and their parents are blobs of water and blobs of fire, and they all have watery hair and watery and fiery hair. And like you can't really add a whole lot of personality into the look of that, and the story kind of tells itself. Like everybody watched that trailer and everybody immediately knows what we're doing here. we
Yeah.
got we got a water man and a fire lady, and their parents don't think, nobody believes that two elements can get together, but do you think that they might? And so, I think that that was a little bit of its undoing too, is like a really predictable story. But everybody knows you can take kids, a young enough kid, and if a movie looks visually cool and it hits the story beats the right way and yada yada, it's the worst thing you can do for a kids movie is make it boring. And it didn't look boring. It looked, like it looked pretty to look at, and it's a story that could so all that
Yeah.
to, without beating around the bush too much, all that to say, uh, the big question is to you guys. So what do you think is going on here? Maybe for each individual movie, or do you think there's just one thing that's happening in Hollywood? And is this like, do you guys think this is the beginning of some? Are we like on the precipice of an edge here, and we're about to have to completely change the way Hollywood works? Like, is Hollywood going to start realizing they can't bank on these movies, and what's the next move for them? I can't. It's hard to count on the next move being like the smarter move,
Yeah.
which is to make more original content.
Which we guess we
And
got
it
to see
isn't.
what happens with the writer's strike too and everything. That's part of it. What's
Yeah,
going
it's
on at the
especially.
moment?
I mean, from my understanding, it seems like it's gonna have a lot more of an effect on TV. Am I right?
Most likely.
And
I
like
would imagine.
streaming content, especially.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm
but
sure
yeah,
just
we'll
a lot
see.
more reality TV will come out because that's kind of what happened initially with
If
the writer's strikes.
if you're like us and you're old enough to remember the 2007 writer strike, it certainly ruined a lot of TV shows and made things really complicated for quite a while, and made the plot lines of TV shows like just completely go off the rails. So we're probably in for some of that. And I also heard like there was an article the other day talking about how Netflix is probably going to start utilizing like the fact that they signed a contract with South Korea to make a bunch of content, like South Korean content,
Oh yeah.
and they're not on strike. So
Oh.
they're probably gonna. I mean, I don't want to editorialize too much, but they're probably gonna sort of just exploit their Korean people that are having the exact same issues that the strike is about. The underpaid and no dividends and things like that. Like I think I heard the person who made Squid Game doesn't make any residuals off of it.
Oh wow.
So they just made whatever chunk of money Netflix gave them for it, and then everything else is profit for Netflix.
That's crazy.
I could be wrong about that, but yeah, we're probably gonna see a ton of South Korean content coming out of Netflix for a while, like more than U.S. content.
I mean, they've already had quite a bit for a little while. I mean, there's a bunch of like, there.
Yeah, it's been a while since they signed the thing.
Yeah, because I was gonna say there's like some game shows and stuff. Like there's one called Physical 100, and like there's one called like Siren Survive the Island. But I know they're also gonna have like actual written content as well, and they already do.
And I mean, maybe we'll get some great stuff out of that, but I hate that it's at the expense of, Netflix is basically, this is my take on it anyway. It's basically like Netflix is saying, well, if we can't underpay Americans to do this, we'll underpay South Koreans to do it.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. But
Yeah.
yeah, the rest of it is we're turning it over to you guys. So comment down below, like this video. It helps us show up in people's algorithms once in a while, and hit follow if you or hit subscribe if you haven't yet. And thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.
Let's see.